prenup would be insulting. I deserve security after our wedding. My fiancé. Family sat around my parents' dinner table. I stayed calm, called my lawyer, and let them talk themselves into admitting the plan out loud. Weeks later, they found out what I had recorded. I'm Ethan Cole, 34M, and I own a mid-sized construction company here in Colorado. Been building it up for the past decade, inherited some money from my grandfather who was a well-known architect, and I've got assets in the mid-seven figures. Nothing flashy. I live modestly and keep my mouth shut about money. Been with my fiancée Maddie Price, 28 female, for 2 years. She does freelance marketing, and we're supposed to get married in 8 weeks. Her family is intense, always asking about my income, company valuation, financial plans. I thought they were just being protective, but looking back, the questions were weirdly specific. Like really specific. This past weekend, my family had a big gathering, since my aunts and uncles were visiting from out of state. I invited Maddie and her family to join us because I thought it would be nice for everyone to get to know each other better before the wedding. Big mistake. So I'm in the kitchen grabbing another beer when I hear Maddie talking to her brother Trevor in the hallway. At first, I wasn't really listening, but then I heard my name and something about timing. I stopped what I was doing and just listened. Here's what I heard. Trevor. What about a prenup? Guy like that has to be thinking about protecting his assets. Maddie. Please. Ethan's way too trusting for that. Once we're married, I'll have access after a reasonable period. I've already looked into what a divorce settlement would look like. Trevor. How long you thinking? Maddie. 6 months to a year should be enough to establish my claim. Then I can file for separation. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. This woman I was planning to spend my life with was literally planning to take half of everything I'd worked for and inherited. And the casual way she talked about it, like it was just business. Jesus. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I needed time to think and figure out what the hell I was going to do. Edit. Holy shit, this blew up. Thanks for all the responses. Reading through comments now, and yeah, a lot of you are saying I need to protect myself legally. Already on it. Edit 2. For everyone asking, yes, I'm absolutely sure about what I heard. I stood there for probably 3 minutes listening to them map out the whole thing. And no, Maddie doesn't know I heard any of this yet. Update 1. Well guys, it's been 2 weeks since my last post, and things have gotten interesting. First off, thanks for all the advice. Seriously, some of you probably saved my financial future. So the Monday after that family gathering, I called the lawyer my accountant recommended and had him draft the most comprehensive prenuptial agreement you've ever seen. We're talking ironclad protection of all premarital assets, detailed provisions about business interests, inheritance protection, the works. My lawyer said it was one of the most thorough prenups he'd written in 20 years. But here's where things get weird. While I was waiting for the legal docs, I started actually paying attention to Maddie's behavior. And once you know what to look for, the signs were everywhere. She'd been taking these mysterious phone calls for weeks that she'd always step outside for. When I asked about them, she'd say it was work stuff or family drama. Last Tuesday, she told me she was going to look at potential apartments for after we're married, because my place was too small for a family. When I offered to come with her, she said she wanted to surprise me, so I followed her. I know, it sounds crazy, but I needed to know what was really going on. She drove to this luxury condo complex downtown, the kind of place that runs about $4,000 a month. She spent 2 hours there with some real estate agent, and I watched them looking at corner units with mountain views. When she got home, I casually asked how the apartment hunting went. She said she just looked at a few small places, and that she hadn't found anything yet. Total bullshit. Then Thursday happened. I presented her with the prenup. You guys. The reaction was like I'd slapped her across the face. She went from confused to hurt to absolutely furious in about 30 seconds. Started crying, saying I didn't trust her, asking if I thought she was some kind of gold digger. The whole performance was actually pretty convincing, until she said something that made my blood run cold. She said, "Ethan, I love you for who you are, not what you have. I thought we were building a life together where we'd share everything equally." Everything equally. The same phrase Trevor had used when they were talking about the divorce settlement. I told her the prenup was just standard protection, and that any couple with significant assets should have one. She stormed out and didn't come home that night. Stayed at her parents' place, which I thought was a bit dramatic, but whatever. The next morning I get a call from her mother. Oh man, this woman laid into me like I'd murdered someone. Called me paranoid, controlling, said I was sabotaging the relationship right before the wedding. Then she dropped this gem. Madeline has given up 2 years of her life for you, and she deserves security. Deserves security? For 2 years of dating, right? Then came the real fun part. That afternoon, Maddie shows up with Trevor and their dad. They have their own version of a prenup. I shit you not. These people had gone to their own lawyer and drafted a counter-prenup that basically said I couldn't protect any of my premarital assets and that everything acquired during the marriage would be split 50-50, including business growth. When I told them that wasn't going to happen, Trevor got aggressive. Started talking about how I was disrespecting their family and how maybe I wasn't good enough for Maddie anyway. The whole thing felt like a shakedown. But wait, there's more. Yesterday, I got a call from my biggest client. Apparently, someone had contacted them claiming there were financial irregularities with my company and that they should look into my business practices. The client was cool about it. We've worked together for 5 years, but they wanted to give me a heads up. 3 guesses who has my client contact information and would know exactly which contracts are most important to my business. I'm done playing defense, guys. War has been declared, and I didn't even know I was in a battle. Edit. Jesus, you guys are fast with the advice. Yeah, I'm documenting everything now. Screenshots, recordings where legal, the whole 9 yards. Edit 2. To answer some questions. No, I haven't called off the wedding officially yet, but I'm getting all my ducks in a row first. My lawyer says I need to be strategic about this. Update 2. Okay, Reddit. Time for the nuclear update you've all been waiting for. It's been 3 weeks since the last post, and the situation has escalated beyond what I thought was possible. First, the harassment campaign intensified. Trevor didn't just contact one client. The fucker systematically went through my business contacts and tried to plant seeds of doubt about my company. He told my supplier that I was going through financial difficulties and might not be able to pay my accounts. He called 3 of my subcontractors and suggested they might want to protect themselves by demanding payment up front for future work. The balls on this guy. Fortunately, I've been in business long enough that people know me, and most of these calls just pissed off my contacts more than anything. But still, it was clear this family was trying to sabotage my livelihood. Meanwhile, Maddie's mother kept calling my mom, crying about how I was breaking her daughter's heart and how the wedding was in 3 weeks and everything was already paid for. My parents, bless them, told her that if I had concerns, then maybe everyone should slow down and figure things out. That apparently was not the right answer. Last Monday, things got really weird. I'm at my house going through project plans when I hear cars in my driveway. Not 1 car, 3 cars. Maddie, her parents, Trevor, and some guy I'd never seen before all get out and march up to my front door like they're serving a warrant. The unknown guy introduces himself as their family attorney. Apparently, they decided that since I was being unreasonable about the prenup, they were going to take legal action for breach of promise and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. These people were threatening to sue me because I wanted to protect assets I'd earned before I even met Maddie. But here's where it gets good. The lawyer starts reading from some document about how I'd made promises of financial security to Maddie and how breaking off the engagement at this point would cause significant financial and emotional damages. They wanted compensation for wedding expenses plus damages for lost opportunities and damage to reputation. I listened to this whole performance, then pulled out my phone and hit record. So just to be clear, I said, you're saying that Maddie entered this relationship with the expectation of financial gain. And now you're upset that I won't give you access to money I earned before we met." The family lawyer started backpedaling immediately, but Trevor opened his big mouth. "She's invested 2 years in you, man. She deserves something for that." And there it was. On recording, the admission that this had always been about money. That's when I dropped my own bomb. I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd made at the family gathering 3 weeks earlier. You know, the one where Maddie and Trevor discussed their timeline for the divorce settlement. The silence was beautiful. Maddie went white as a sheet. Her parents looked like they'd seen a ghost. Even the lawyer looked uncomfortable. Maddie tried to claim the recording was taken out of context, but it's pretty hard to misinterpret a conversation about filing for divorce after a reasonable period to maximize the settlement. Her dad, who'd been pretty quiet through all of this, finally spoke up. "Madeline, what the hell is he talking about?" And that's when everything fell apart. Maddie started crying and admitted she'd been thinking about what would happen if things didn't work out, but tried to frame it like she was just being practical. Trevor jumped in to defend her, saying I was being manipulative by recording private conversations, but her dad wasn't buying it. Turns out this isn't the first time Maddie's played this game. Her dad revealed that her mother had done something similar in their early marriage, married him for financial stability, and then tried to divorce him within a year when she thought she'd be entitled to alimony. They worked it out, but only after counseling and some serious changes. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, apparently. The confrontation ended with the family lawyer advising them to reconsider their position and everyone leaving my property. Maddie tried to stay behind to talk things through, but I told her we were done. The next morning, I woke up to find 2 police officers at my door. Maddie had filed a report claiming I'd forced her out of her residence and that I was keeping her personal belongings hostage. Small problem with that story. Maddie never lived here. She'd stayed over plenty of times, but she kept her own apartment, and her name isn't on any of my paperwork. The cops looked at my lease, saw that only my name was on it, and basically told her she needed to work this out as a civil matter. But here's the kicker. While she was filing false police reports, her stuff was still here, because she'd gradually moved things in over the past few months without me really noticing. Clothes, toiletries, some furniture. I packed it all up, took pictures for documentation, and had it delivered to her apartment with a signature required. As of yesterday, I've officially called off the wedding. The venue was surprisingly understanding, especially after I explained the situation. Lost some deposits, but compared to what I could have lost in a divorce, it's pocket change. Edit. For everyone asking about legal action, yes, my lawyer says I have a solid case for harassment and possibly fraud, depending on how far we want to take it. We're discussing options. Edit 2. Shout out to you/LegalEagle2019 for the advice about documenting everything. That recording saved my ass. Edit 3. Yes, I'm changing the locks tomorrow. Should have done it weeks ago. Final update. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I figured you guys deserve to know how this whole shit show wrapped up. First, the immediate aftermath. Calling off the wedding sent Maddie into full damage control mode. She posted all over social media about how I'd abandoned her at the altar and was a coward who couldn't commit. She painted herself as the heartbroken victim who'd been blindsided by her cold, calculating ex-fiancé. The story might have stuck if I hadn't already sent a group text to our mutual friends with the full explanation, including some carefully edited audio clips. Let's just say public opinion shifted pretty quickly once people heard Maddie casually discussing divorce timelines and asset division strategies. Trevor tried to double down on the business harassment, but that backfired spectacularly. One of the contractors he contacted was my buddy Mike, who'd been my roommate in college. Mike recorded the call where Trevor claimed I was financially unstable and suggested Mike should demand upfront payment for work. When Mike played the recording for other contractors in our network, word got around fast. Trevor's reputation in the local business community is basically toast now. Meanwhile, Maddie made one last desperate play. She tried to access my bank accounts using personal information she'd gathered over 2 years of dating. My bank's fraud detection caught it immediately, Apparently, she'd attempted to add herself as an authorized user on 3 different accounts using my SSN and some basic security questions she knew the answers to. That attempt gave my lawyer everything he needed. Bank fraud is serious business, and even the failed attempt created a paper trail. We didn't press criminal charges, but we did use it as leverage to get Maddie and her family to sign an agreement promising no further contact or harassment. The family dynamics got interesting too. Maddie's dad called me about 3 weeks after everything blew up. Turns out, he'd done some investigating of his own and discovered this wasn't Maddie's first rodeo. She'd had a previous relationship in Kansas that ended under suspicious circumstances, similar pattern of getting engaged quickly to a guy with money and then the relationship imploding right before the wedding. Her dad apologized. Last I heard, Maddie had moved back to Kansas to live with her aunt while her parents figured out whether they were going to continue supporting her lifestyle. Trevor, meanwhile, got fired from his job. Apparently, his supervisor found out about his attempts to sabotage my business relationships and decided that kind of harassment reflected poorly on their company. He's working retail now, which seems about right for his skill level. As for me, I'm doing great. The business is thriving. Turns out, surviving a coordinated attack on your professional reputation actually makes your real relationship stronger. Clients and contractors who stuck with me through the bullshit have become even more loyal, and I've picked up new work through referrals from people who respected how I handled the situation. I took a road trip through Utah and Arizona last month to clear my head and do some hiking. While I was in Moab, I met Olivia, who's 30 and owns her own landscape architecture firm. We hit it off immediately, and when we started talking about future goals and relationships, she brought up prenups before I did. Said she'd insist on one because she's worked too hard building her business to risk losing it in a relationship that doesn't work out. It's refreshing as hell to meet someone who understands that protecting what you've built isn't about lack of trust. It's about being realistic and responsible. We're taking things slow, but I'm optimistic. More importantly, I feel like I dodged the biggest bullet of my life. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't overheard that conversation. I'd probably be divorced right now, fighting over assets I'd worked a decade to build, and wondering where everything went wrong. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. You guys helped me see the situation clearly when I was too close to it to think straight. The house feels peaceful again. My business is solid, and I'm dating someone who sees financial planning as a partnership, not a heist. Life is good. Edit. For everyone asking. Yes, I still have the recording, and yes, my lawyer has copies of everything. I'm keeping documentation for a while just in case, but honestly, I think this story is over. Maddie and her family got the message.